Good afternoon and welcome to JTF Marketing's webinar for Out with the Spreadsheets and In with the Marketo Engage Revenue Models. I'll be your host today. I'm James Fletcher. Getting started. Today, we're aiming to cover how to track your leads through the entire funnel, getting visibility into the sticking points in the customer journey, focusing your marketing campaigns on conversion. So how do we get more results from those campaigns that we're running, and why the revenue cycle model in Marketo and engagement programs are the dream team. And importantly, how do we use that revenue model to align up our campaigns? How do we make sure that they're hitting our customers at the right place and the right time? As I mentioned, I'm James Fletcher. I'm the CEO and a Marketo Solutions Architect, or Marketo Master of something or other in new Adobe terminology. And I will be taking you through this today. And this is actually one of my favorite topics when it comes to Marketo, one of my favorite areas to work with our customers. And importantly, one of the areas which I think give you most value from Marketo itself. So we work with a bunch of customers across the globe. Some of you who are on the call today are actually our customers. So it's great to have new customers as well as existing customers come on board to this call. And of course, you prospective customers out there for us. You'll see on the screen, there's a bunch of logos, and some of these we've been working with for a very long time, others fairly fresh additions to the JTF marketing mix. And we help across multiple industry types, multiple use cases, and we're covering everything from campaign execution through to technical implementations, through to training of individuals and teams. And we also have a software package as well, which we plug into Marketo to help us maximize the value. A lot of our time is actually spent working with these customers, helping them manage Marketo and get the most out of it. So again, much to the theme of this webinar, we're looking at ways and how we can help you get value from your investment, because Marketo's not the cheapest of platforms, and most of the marketing automation platforms are not that cheap anymore. But again, they can bring a lot of value if we get it right and we get the structure in place. So we all want visibility, and we get asked a lot of tough questions in marketing. And often, some of our customers will say, we're just seeing as post-its and pens, but actually we do a lot more. And so how do we make this more efficient? How do we get more insight into what works and what doesn't? And so some of these questions on the screen, you guys will probably have seen before. How many new names have we generated this month? Or how many have become MQLs? And what's the conversion rate? And when are we expecting more leads? And why is the quality not that great? And what is the state of our overall marketing database? Can we improve what we've got? So on the right-hand side, you'll see some of the reports we use internally. And this is a mix of data sources. And we've assembled these into a reporting pack, not only Marketo stats in terms of what's working, what's not, but ultimately this funnel. How do we understand this funnel? Where are we getting those conversations from? And how do we analyze them? So what is a revenue model? I have spent a lot of time, I'm sure you guys have as well, with spreadsheets, trying to figure out how do I present this data? How do I consolidate it into a picture that paints to the board? And importantly, my colleagues, a great job that I'm doing, right? We know that we're generating leads. We know they're getting stuck in the process, and we know that we're influencing revenue. So how do we get back to proving that? So revenue models are basically our spreadsheets that we build. And on the right-hand side here, you'll see an example that I built back in 2019, if not before, which again was trying to paint that picture of these are the number of opportunities we've influenced. This is what's happened. And some of you will be doing this by channel. This number of leads I got from paid advertising, PR, an event, whatever it might be. And again, some of you will be doing it by business line. What is this business line doing different to another? How can it be measured slightly differently? Now, when we think about it, actually what we're trying to understand is we've generated X number of new names, and where are they in that cycle? But we don't have this always on view of what is happening. Where is the data? What is improving? What's not? And let's face it, we all know that it takes a lot of time and it's painful. Exports of lists and different systems and so on and so forth. Again, I don't have to teach you people about the subject. You know how painful this can be just to get that visibility. But in Marketo, what does it mean? What is a revenue model in Marketo terminology? So think along the lines of automated data, which I know can feel in terms of words. Think about visual analytics, as well as historic trends. We're seeing the change rated time and stages, and importantly, predefined categories and rules around your lead management. So on the right-hand side, again, you'll see an example of a revenue model in Marketo, and we'll jump into that in a bit more detail shortly. Again, the idea here is that we're looking to get a view over time of those leads. What is happening? What is changing? What is evolving? Where are the sticking points? Where should we spend our time? So let's jump straight into Marketo, and I'm going to show you guys a little bit about a revenue model in Marketo. Importantly, we're going to look at some of the rules and how does it work and how is it updated. And then we'll also touch on that point of how do we embed this into our day-to-day? How do we use it alongside engagement programs, other campaigns? So if you're in Marketo, jump over into analytics. And on the left-hand side, you'll see Revenue Cycle Modeler, if you have access to it, and also if it's in your subscription. And on the right-hand side here, if you scroll through these folder menus, you'll come to a model if there is one created, or you'll be able to create one. There might be a draft there for you already. Once you open that model up, which I've preloaded just to save some time on this quick demo, you'll get a view like this. And if we talk about this model in a couple of ways, there's a few interesting points to know. The green line across the screen is the path to success. So this is the dream scenario. Someone sails through our buying process. We spend the time focusing on them, getting them through those different sections. And then we've got these little buckets of people, right? Or boxes in this case. And those boxes are basically the definition of the milestones in our buying journey. Or in other cases, they might be when people fall out of these processes, right? In the top right-hand corner here, we've got 3 different types. And I want to talk about these first because I think with revenue models, it's quite easy to get distracted by the complexity that is available here. And often my advice is keep it super simple in the beginning, start to learn, see what works, and then we can move into some of these other areas. So let's talk them through. Inventory, nice and easy. I say bucket, cardboard box, whatever you want to say. It's a group of people that you have assembled into a status based on the data points. An SLA, we don't need to define that any further. Service level agreement, it is a time frame in which something has to be done. Useful if you have an SDR team, throw it over the fence to the SDR team, they pick it up within a certain amount of time. Otherwise, we can trigger off another flow. It might be a recycle step, it might be, maybe it's even a lost deal that we bring back after 90 days and try and bring back into our process. And then finally, gate, which is about steering people in different journeys. You can have multiple revenue models in Marketo. You can build those out specific to acquisition journeys, retention journeys, maybe it's product line, maybe it's industry that you're trying to analyze. Again, you choose who's included in this model. And the gate can allow us to split that journey and understand once we move them into different business lines, where did it start? How do we get here? So if I then just look at one of the steps here, I like choosing MQL to SAL because I think it's the most interesting one for most of us. We're always trying to get more MQLs to become SALs, sales accepted lead for those not so familiar with SAL. And again, the idea is about starting conversations, right? How do we get these marketing qualified leads, the data that we've defined as interesting to go and talk to one of our customers, one of our salespeople, or even a product specialist within our business. Now, the way that this works, we can add as many stages in as we like. So again, we can drag as many inventory spots in as we like. And then on the arrow here is where we start to define the change between each one of those statuses. So you'll see here on the screen, I'm using one field to drive this entire model. Throughout the entire model, I'm always using the person status. This is a Salesforce status field that I'm using because I have a Salesforce instance plugged into this instance. And again, what I'm trying to do is keep it really simple. I don't want to check that someone's got a job title or an industry or whatever. I'm doing that ahead of time in my MQL stage. I'm trying to get my good quality data to MQL, and then I'm expecting data value changes. Now, data value changes is useful in Marketo because you're listening to anything that triggers this change. It might be a lead management program in Marketo. It might be a manual change. It might be a third-party application talking to Marketo if you've got an appointment setting tool. Again, there's lots of possibilities. So by simplifying it, keeps it really, really easy. So often I talk to customers about the status field and why it's important. And then we've got multiple parts of this journey, right? So we've got new through to a closed won customer. So it gets a bit more complicated, of course, when we get up to this area, which is, okay, we're starting an appointment, we've got a proposal. This is opportunities in Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics. And we're looking for people who are attached to those opportunities. So people who have an attachment to an opportunity in CRM, and then the CRM opportunity has a specific status. So you'll see here, the opportunity is updated. They're added to an opportunity, i.e. we add an influencer later on in the process, or the third one is just checking that they've actually got that proposal and quote status as well. And again, the idea here is keeping it super simple. Our buying process is based on the stages we define in CRM, and we can manage the people through that process. Now, you'll see underneath my path to success, I've got a few different stages. So disqualified, other marketing automation platforms in this case, because typically we're targeting Marketo folks, or lost, right? So what happens when the deals are lost? We move them into a bucket. Now, what you can add in here later on is a rule that takes this person from closed lost back into SAL at a later date. And we can redefine this rule, right? So it might be the person has been a member of this stage for X amount of time, therefore we want to bring them back again. So you can build in those recycling processes that you're expecting to happen. And we talk about this all the time in lead nurturing. Oh, we'll recycle the leads later on. And if sales don't like that lead, we'll nurture them and bring them back again. But with revenue models in Marketo, we've got to make sure we're moving the people between the stages to get the right analytics. So moving on from there, I want to jump straight into the lead nurturing programs before I get into the analytics of a revenue model. Because we've talked about these stages, those buckets of people. Again, they can be driven either through smart lists or, again, if you want to use the status fields, wherever it might be for your criteria. And again, these always take a bit of time to get your head around and get the structure right. And definitely seek some advice on building those. And I'll give you a few more tips and a couple of tools later on. So if I look at my acquisition nurture campaign here in Marketo, I've got a couple of things that I'm going to pull out to show you here. And I'll tell you why I'm skipping over the guinea pigs one, because that is our test stream of sending content. And it's got no transition rules, which is why I didn't click on it. So you'll see here within my lead nurturing campaign, I've got the triggers set up, ready to use the status changes of the revenue model. I'm not worried about whether they're taking any action. I'm not worried about what they're doing because I've aligned my program to the different stages of the journey. So I've got my MQL, I've got my SAL, my SQL, and then I have another program that takes on the retention piece. So when this person becomes a customer, then what happens? How do we engage with them? And again, these are pretty straightforward rules to set up. Doesn't take an expert to do it, but it's definitely something that's really easy to line up. Again, you might even have specific campaigns, specific messages that you start to send out to your audience. If I take my MQL audience, for example, let's say I want to embed my program. This is an embedded program in the nurture campaign in multiple streams. Let's say it's in my SAL stream as well. I might differ the message based on the interaction at the stage in my buying cycle. So my message to an MQL might be, hey, we offer some services around CRM integration. And in my SAL, I might be saying, hey, you're already talking to us about this. This might be of interest to you too. Here's how we've helped other people. So the message slightly shifts. And again, we can use dynamic content, a combination of lead nurturing, as well as the revenue model in order to encourage those people through the process. And don't forget the CTA changes as well. The call to action is going to be different for an MQL versus an SAL versus an SQL. An SAL, SQL, we're going to be communicating as an account manager rather than as a business, because we're saying, hey, I'm having a one-to-one conversation with you. Here's another thing I thought you might like. So again, the content differs as well. That's good to know. The final part of this, of course, is what do I get out the other side, right? So where's the data? What am I going to see? Now, there's a couple of reports in Marketo that you can build. There's smart lists, of course, that you can build and say, has revenue stage X and is this and that, and you can start to filter down in more detail. Here is the best report for me in Marketo when it comes to revenue models. Success Path Analyzer. If you're focused on driving conversions through your business, you're looking at each stage and thinking about, okay, so I've got 347 names in my new pot. What am I going to do in order to make those MQLs? What do I need to do? either data collection, validation manually, whatever the process might be, you're going to go and spend some time on those to get them through the process. Your MQL, and this is, I love this conversation about defining an MQL. What is an MQL? Again, this is the data we know we're trying to market to. We know is correct for us. We know is a good fit. We know we've got case studies that back it up, et cetera, et cetera. So we're putting those into the pot and we're marketing to them. This is the audience where we've got enough detail about them in order to understand whether our products or propositions, services then fit. Equally, as we go through the process, you start to look at some of the detail. Again, what's interesting here, as you start to see, the balance of this stage, you get the inflow, so new data in, the outflow, and the outflow accounts for people who've moved to the next stage in the revenue model following the path to success, or people who've been excluded, right? Because we're excluding people in different stages as well. We're also looking at conversion rates. What's the conversion rate between a net new name into an MQL? What does that look like in terms of timing, so that we can start to get an estimation around, if I can spend $500,000 extra, where and when is that going to come in? What does it look like? What is my predictability going to be? And how do I make sure that that then is fed back to the business when I'm asking for more money, that I go back with some idea of when that's going to hit the bank balance again in terms of revenue. Now, there's a couple of views here. You can look daily, you can look weekly, you can look monthly. And again, you've got your usual date ranges as well that you can add in. And I find this really useful because, again, when we talk about lining up our campaigns in terms of the revenue model, we're saying, okay, we've got a real problem when it comes to converting MQLs into SAL in this demo environment. How do we do that? What is it going to look like? What are we trying to do to engage them? Or is our MQL to SAL barrier too high? Maybe it's a lead score that's flicking people over, or maybe it's something different. So again, how do we measure that? How do we get that right? So how do we then go from here, right? So this revenue model stuff sounds brilliant. What do I do next? So we have this tool. It's basically a very simple diagram, he says, as it's probably daunting you all on the screen. No need to screenshot it. We will have a download link that comes up after this webinar. But let's just pick on a couple of these. The idea of this model is to help you get a very clear view on each one of the stages in your buying cycle, right? So if we start from the left-hand side, super easy. They're anonymous. We don't know anything about them. They're just coming to our website, engaging with our content. Well, we've got the Marketo cookie ID, which is anonymous. And when they fill out a form, we then start to collect some more information about them and inferred information. Maybe it's country, region, so on. And we can start to make some better assumptions about what are they doing, how are they engaging with us, and then figuring out what next. I love this stage disqualified. I think it's super important. This is when we're looking at the list of people coming through our website to say, are they the right fit for us? Do we need more information? Is it just junk? Is it someone selling you SEO services, which we all seem to get a lot of now these days? It's video, right? Or does it just not fit what we are looking for in terms of a customer? Because again, this is about ideal fit too, right? It might be that we delay it, we might progress it faster. Again, how do we enrich that data, disqualify them in or out? We use email statuses as well. So validate your email address so that when we do hand it over to a sales rep, actually that person can get in touch. Now, if we talk about MQL, again, the age-old challenge, what is an MQL? What is an SQL? Again, this is trying to get to some very clear data points. So in this case, if it doesn't click on the screen, we've got has Marketo, doesn't have an open project, or a project isn't archived. So again, we're trying to get to that definition of what does that mean for us? How do we understand that that person is the right fit? And you'll see here, I've even added in some color coding just to understand what technologies am I engaging with throughout this buying cycle? What does it look like? And actually, this is the model that we used internally in JTF. So as I said, we're going to share with you this download, so you'll get this straight after. If you can't wait, feel free to jump over to jtfmarketing.co/resources, and you'll find it on the list of resources there. Again, this template is, there's an empty one as well as a pre-populated one, which is the one I've just shown you, so that you can have a look at that and see how can you use that as a tool to populate your revenue model, or at least get a view of your customer journey map, right? Once you're aligned with each one of those stages, it's much easier to then go and build your revenue model in Marketo. So I always say, map it out before you crack it out. So make sure that you've got all the data points in place, you've got all the descriptions, you're very clear on it, the business agrees on it. But don't be too scared, because like everything in the world of marketing automation, it requires optimization, and there will be change over time. So 3 reasons to build it right now. You're going to get visibility. You're going to see what's working, what's not, whether the campaigns you're running are pushing people through the journey or not. Importantly, you're going to see an increase targeting and personalization through the different life cycle stages, using them as ways to target your customer, better alignment of CTAs, more clarity on whether people are actually going through those cycles or actually taking the action you're expecting for that piece of content. Plus, you can rework content for both ends of the spectrum. So whether they're starting out with you or they're further in the buying cycle already. And you'll get some data and some language to take to the board, which actually makes a lot more sense. And live data packs as well. So like the examples I showed you in the beginning, if you want anything like that, get in touch with us. We can share with you a couple more examples as well of the kind of reports that we use to understand what is working in marketing and what's not. And importantly, what is influencing the opportunities. We've got vast experience of supporting customers through this process. So we've spent quite a lot of time understanding our customers' businesses, understanding how they work, their business objectives. And let's face it, we're all in the same game of either retention or net new logo, new leads, new conversations, and revenue. We're all trying to get to revenue. So how do we make sure that we can analyze it, influence it, and keep track of where we are? We're going to be able to help you learn a little bit more about how to use this tool as well. How can it influence your day-to-day? And importantly, how do we make it work for you? Because again, it's important. We often talk about fast tracking through the process. Some people talk about lead scoring and how that interacts also with the revenue model. And it does influence the tipping point between different stages. And importantly, you'll be able to start to understand whether you're getting an ROI from your campaign. Are you getting the result you set out to get? I often talk about that from a content perspective of getting more value from existing content. Stop rewriting content, just utilize the stuff you've got.